Today's study focuses on Job chapters 13 through 16. And in these chapters, we see Job wrestling with what is going on. He is desperately trying to figure out why these horrible things have happened to him. And in Job chapter 13, we see him accuse God of just nitpicking through his life. 13, 26, and 27 say, "You write bitter things against me. You make me inherit the iniquities of my youth. You put my feet in stocks and watch closely all my paths." This is conveying a belief that Job and Job's friends all hold about God, that suffering is always a result of sin and blessing is always a result of righteousness. And we can see this attitude that Job carries even from chapter 1, where Job is making sacrifices for his kids just in case they sin. This is a very black and white interpretation of the relationship that God has with humanity. And interestingly, it's not what we see of God when we look back on the history of humanity. Yes, we see when sin reaches a maximum point, God does something to correct it, but we also see his grace over and over and over again. And that's what's so interesting about this entire book of the Bible, is that it really flips our idea of justice on its head. It is so hard for us to watch Job, who is righteous and blameless and desperately wants to do the right thing. It is so hard to watch him suffer. But on the flip side of that, what we see in scripture is that we, as sinful human beings, get to be counted as totally righteous because of Jesus. So just as unjust as the treatment of Job is, so is what Jesus did for us on the cross. Jesus was blameless, and he took on all of our sin so that we could be washed totally clean. And we didn't do anything to earn it. Now, when it comes to Job himself, in the midst of this suffering and this pressure, he's unknowingly growing in his knowledge of God. Chapter 16, verse 19 shows us what I think is growth on Job's part. It says, "Even now, my witness is in heaven. My advocate is there on high. My friends scorn me, but I pour out my tears to God." It just brings us back to that beautiful picture painted in Job 1 of our advocate standing before the throne, counting us as righteous because of what he did. That's what's so beautiful about Job's faith. This suffering is not pushing him to turn away from God, as the enemy suspected. It's actually pushing him to God. And the closer and closer Job gets to God, the more he's going to realize that God is not a nitpicky God. God is not sitting around with a ruler ready to tap us anytime we get out of line. He's the opposite. He's a God of grace and mercy.